In reality, you know, they were trying to increase rallies and getting these bigger players zeroed. Well, now these bigger player people are just going to be doing this, and we're going to be back at square one. That's the problem of trying to change things, is you change it and then people figure out a way just to bring it back to the way it was. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing defense, the new meta, why this is coming about, you know, with all these big rallies. How are people going to be able to defend this? What's the difference between flat stats, percentages? That's mainly where we're going to be diving in. Why are flat stats so much more important on defense? And why is it such a big deal now more so than ever? But you probably should have been on flat stats regardless, but I'm going to kind of dive in how you should utilize flat stats and what you should be building to make it more effective. All right, guys, let's get into this. All right, hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today, in the eve of All-Star Finals, kind of made me think about my wall general. Kind of made me think about debuffs. You know, there's these big rallies coming at you. You know, they can have a 40 million man rally coming at you, and what's that gonna do to you? Kind of my video before this, we got to improvise, adapt, and overcome. So I'm basically thinking about ways to overcome this onslaught of crazy debuffs coming at you. You know, all your guys can get debuffed by 50%. So whatever their attack percentage is, that percentage can get cut directly in half. Especially, you know, if you're doing all-star, especially if you're doing salons, you're playing against the best players in your continent. This is where these little things are going to matter. It may not matter too much in server wars. I guess it kind of depends on your scale and who you're faced up against. It can. I'm not saying it can't, but you're going to run into this more often than not in these finals. You know, Shalons, All-Stars, and things like that, where you're going against the best in your continent. And that's where these things are going to matter. So as you can see right now, I'm talking about amenity gear. So this is kind of for guys that are keep 33 and up. With me stating that when they attack you, they can send their subordinate city generals in, right? And granted, if they're rallying you, they're not going to have as crazy debuffs. But we're just gonna say they can take you out 50%, right? Maybe their research is absolutely crazy. You know, I've been rallied by some of these guys, and I'm getting debuffed to 500%, which is basically cutting my stuff in half. So, and that's just their skills and things like that. So it kind of depends on where you're at as well, how your buffs are looking and things like that. But anyways, we're just gonna say that they can take you 50% down, right? So there's a couple of things. This is gonna be for Johnson. You can also have Leonidas, so you can apply this same type of principle that I'm going to talk about towards like your ground defense, or, you know, your archer defense, whatever. But I'm going to be specifically talk about siege, and I'm going to talk about mounted, because that's kind of where I'm at. But like I said, guys, you can apply these same basic rules and same basic fundamentals to Leonidas for your ground and things like that. So as you guys can see right now, and I'll get this out the get-go right away. So I said that when the enemy team can attack you, they can take away 50% of your percentages. So, right, let's just say, I'm just going to use this for an example in case everybody's not tracking what I'm talking about. Okay, this buff has a 13% attack on it, right? Let's just use this small little piece. If somebody were to attack me, and they could take 50% of that off, you know, they're taking out, you know, 6.6, right? So they now just brought my ground attack down to 6.6. Well, they can only bring percentages, like I said. This flat stat right here, they cannot bring that down. And I'm going to get into the importance of this. This is going to apply for your ring, and this is also going to apply for your weapon, because they're both going to be the attack ones. So if I were to have 500 flat stack attack, that would be 2,000 on this, and then 2,000 on my sword, right? Let's bring out the handy dandy calculator. You know, just remember, guys, this is infantry math, so you know it's pretty complex. So we can add 4,000 attack, right? And now we're talking about siege, because I'm gonna like siege because they're gonna hit me with archers, and I want to take them out, right? So if you look at this right here, this attack 400, right? So let's just throw a 4,000 on top of that. For shits and giggles, we're just gonna say it's 4,500 for simplicity, right? So we brought our T1 attack up 4,500. Granted, bear in mind that the range is gonna be off, right? The range. So if they're attacking you with siege, this is not gonna act like a T9. I'm kind of get into that, but I'm not talking about range, okay? And you also got to understand as well that range, as it goes up for siege, the range starts getting longer, longer and longer and longer, a greater distance they can hit you from. So it's not going to increase the range, but we're just talking about attack right now because of these big rallies that are coming at you. So this T1 now has a 4,500 attack, right? So if we go to T9, if we go to T10, so it's a little bit less attack than T10, but it's a little bit greater of attack than T9. So, and granted, as we see the range for the T1 was 14. These are 17. So technically, if people march you with siege at a higher tier, they're going to still hit you first, and they're still going to do more damage to you. But once they get into range, your T1s are basically going to be hitting just as hard. Granted, they will die because their HP is less, but their attack will be on par. So that'll come into play if they send an archer rally to you. The T9s, untouched, just regular, will do the exact same amount of damage as a T1 that has all the flat stacks on your wall general. So you can stack, all right, guys, I have to slide this in there in the video because I made the whole video and completely forgot to add this. Sometimes when I'm making these videos, I'll have something that I want to talk about and I get so off track that I even forget to bring it up. So maybe I got to start writing this stuff down. But anyways, so we talked about you can increase siege up by 4,000 flat stats, right? So I basically took T13 siege, brought it down in half, and you're at 4,500, right? So basically, if they come in there and debuff your siege, the only thing they're going to be debuffing, basically 13 and below with your flat stacks, are all either going to be above where they normally were or exactly the same where they normally were. 14s and 15s are going to be a little bit below, but that's just a little bit of food for thought for you guys, that flat stacks are going to be so much more superior because that 50% debuffs that they're taking out, your flat stats are just bringing it all right back into the equation. So this is definitely going to be the route. I mean, your 12s, 13s, and 14s and 15s. What if you got 15s? Cool on you, but they're going to be a lot stronger than they were. So I would rather have a 9,000 or 8,500 attack siege than just a 4,500. So you guys keep that in mind. I'm also not adding in all your other stats and percentages because at the end of the day, it's still going to bring back to this number, and then it's going to be percentages off this number. So it's just kind of raw infantry math for you guys. So I hope that helps you out. Back in the video. 5 million, 10 million T1 range, right? And they're going to be doing the same damage as a T9. It's going to be pretty good. And then if you go to the T2, what did we say it was? All right, it's still kind of similar, right? So the T2 and T1 are basically going to be doing about 4,500. You get right here. All right, so this is almost at 5,000. So now a T11, a T3 is very comparable to a T10. So just bear in mind that, guys, there's these big marches coming at you. You're losing a lot of power. I'm going to probably start switching up my wall general to have flat stats. I think this is going to be the best route. And I'm going to just have such a large amount of T1s, T2s, and T3s. So when they hit them, these lower tiers are going to be hitting the same amount of damage as a T9 and a T10 on their 14s and 13s and 11s they're sending at me. So I am going to come out like way on top. way on top. Because, I mean, if you had 10, 5 to 10 million T10s and T9s, like, you're going to be wrecking people. And let's just get at the numbers standpoint, right? So let's just say we got 1 million of these, right? It shows it right here. So it's only going to cost you 100 million wood, and it's going to cost you 6 million stone, right? And that's equivalent to a T9, which would be equivalent to, let me do this infantry math here real quick. I think that's 600 million. So it would be equivalent to 600 million right here, right? And 1.8 billion here to get 1 million of those troops. So it's basically cutting your spending down, or from 600 million. That's the low side. This is 1.8 billion. It goes from 1.8 billion to 60 million. Like, it's just, like, for the resources, it's just not even comparable. It's not even in the same realm. It's so much cheaper to train these lower tier troops and then do the flat stats, and they get the exact same amount of damage as these higher tiers. And also, if they end up killing these guys, they're going to be doing, like I said, T9s, T10 damage, but they're not going to be giving away that T9 and T10 power. Okay, you guys are going to see right here is this 2 power. So if they kill 1 million of your guys, they're taking 2 million points. Versus you come over here to the T9s that are equivalent to it. So let's do, that's going to be 22 million, right? So they're only going to be taking 2 million power versus they would have been taking 22 million power. So that's going to be on your side too. With this whole game change of larger rallies, guys getting zeroed so much easier, I see this lower tier defensive setup with flat stats going to be the new thing. And then, guys, we're going to jump on over here to mounted, because obviously I'm kind of making this video aimed towards if somebody's hitting you with archers. So wall gen, we're going to be looking at this, right? I'm just going to say that it's 1500, right? I'm not even going to go to the 1900. Yes, you would want to get as high to 1900, but I wouldn't save anything under 1500, right? All right, guys. And then we're going to be looking at these T1s, right? So we're just going to say, 1500. That's where I wouldn't go too much below 1500. Granted, you can basically get 2000, but I'm just going to say 1500. So I'm going to say 6,000 per piece of gear. And then you can also do the helm. So we're talking about, you can increase your mounted by an additional 12,000 stats. We're talking about HP here. So potentially you could bring, a T1 up to 14,000 HP. It's basically going to be the 9 like the other one. So it's pretty much the exact same thing as the siege, right? It's going to be the same principle with power, same principle with HP. And just for the length of the video, the defense is going to be the exact same thing. So basically what you're looking at is the only thing you're losing is attack. But if you got your siege going in the background, just devastating, this is going to be the way that we're going to go. This has to be the way that we're going to go. We have to go with lower tier troops. And with these big rallies coming at us, it's just what we got to do now. So if you're granted, how it works is basically, I've heard some people say anything below T12, so like T11 and below, it's better for flat stacks. I am more on the ballpark of anything below a 10 and under is good for flat stats. So when I'm talking about flat stats here, this is not something we're specifically talking about defense. This is not something that you want to throw on your attacking general. You don't want to send T14s with flat stats. It's not going to scale properly. Flat stats is specifically good for individuals that want to spend less resources, have more troops there, increase the you're not increasing the percentages, you're increasing the stats of these troops, of these lower tier troops, and basically bringing them up to a higher tier class just by doing flat stats. So why is that a big thing? Because people, when they're attacking, like I said, they're going to cut your percentages in half. And if all of these T1 mounted have the same stats, they're going to be harder to kill. The mounted is going to be what's rushing in And if they're kind of acting like, you know, almost like ground units, especially these T1s are going to be very difficult to kill. It's going to prolong the fight, and it's going to help you win in the long run because you're going to have your siege just smoking these archers. And these guys, these T1s, granted, these T1s are not going to initially start fighting your higher tiers. They're going to start lower and then start working through those tiers and then just gradually start going up. But if they can overwhelm the other team in a turn or two, I mean, they could be up to T10s within a couple of turns. So it's something you guys want to think about, especially if rallies are coming after you. There's going to be a lot of things going on. This is going to be very good against rallies. These big 40 million rallies. I mean, if I seen guys that we were facing, he had, you know, 500 million T1 mounted. I mean, we sent a 20 million march at him and still cleared him, but he actually did pretty well. He did pretty well against that rally. So it's something you want to think about. If he would have got reinforced, it would probably been a different situation. And then look at this. So you go into here. These are very similar. So maybe it's only about 1,000. A little bit under 1,000, huh? So it's 19. So it probably isn't even worth doing the T2s. It's not even probably worth the T3s. It's probably just worth it knocking out the T1s, getting a buttload of T1 mounted, sending them in there. If you guys wanted to, you could have a couple of presets just to get rid of your bigger tier mounted troops and let these mounted fight it out. I'm just trying to give you guys, I'm trying to adapt to this 40 million rally coming at you. Flat stats are gonna be it. That's what you want to go with on defense. If you have that siege, those T1s, I mean, if you have 20 million T1 siege, T1, T2, T3s, and they're hitting like 9, 10s, and 11s, you know, T11s are one of the best siege to be hitting with. So if you can have 5 million of those for a fraction of the price, you're gonna have a really good keep. You're gonna have a really good keep. Your mounted aren't gonna die very well. They're gonna push in and get in there and kind of act like ground. And then your siege are gonna be behind there. Like I said, the T1 siege, you know, they don't have the range as an 11, but they'll still be able to hit archers first. And they'll still be devastating those archers. So it's something you guys want to think about. This game is changing. We're going to need tons of low tier troops. That's kind of how it was when I was playing Mobile Strike like 6-7 years ago. The bigger trap players just trained tons of T1s. So that's probably where it's going to go now. You know, Evony switched up the game for us, but in reality, you know, they were trying to increase rallies and getting these bigger players zeroed. Well, now these bigger player people are just going to be doing this, and we're going to be back at square one. That's the problem of trying to change things, is you change it, and then people figure out a way just to bring it back to the way it was. So this is going to be, I think this is going to be, I mean, granted, guys, this is all theory. This is all speculative information. This is what I'm going to be going towards. I think it's going to help me out. I hope it is. And, you know, we'll see how it goes. I think this is going to be the route. Definitely going to be the route to travel. So hopefully you guys can kind of see the difference of percentages versus kind of flat stats. I know I kind of beat a dead horse with the flat stats, but, you know, Evony right now, they don't have anything right now, I say. Until later, they don't have any way to take away flat stats. So if they're already debuffing your guys in half, they can't debuff your flat stats. They can't. So it doesn't matter what they come in with the debuffs. It's going to basically take majority of their research and just throw it out the window. It's not going to matter anymore. So we'll see where it goes. I have a feeling the next All-Stars, the next Shalon, There's going to be more players with tons of T1s. And potentially it's going to be more difficult rallies again. And we're going to be where we were a couple months ago. So anyways, guys, adapt to the situation. I think this is the best way to adapt. Get your percentages off your wall general and get those flat stats on there. You guys have a good one. Stay blessed. Stay strong.